everybody. It's your friend Cindy with BNOW. And
Good
Jeannie and
morning.
I decided it would be a good idea to interview these beautiful women from the Power of Eight. So we are doing the Power of Eight. You call yourselves the High
Vibe
Vibe
Divine
Sisterhood.
Sisterhood.
Yes, exactly. And so we are interviewing each one of you. And this is Rebecca Ratcliff. Thank you for joining us today.
I'm so happy to be here.
You've come to a couple of our retreats and so impressive. I saw you heal a woman at one retreat, and then I saw you heal a woman in another retreat. Your energy, it's the energy that you bring through. I know that it's hard to say I healed. That's not how you do it. You know how to bring through the energy. So let us know how you got involved in the Power of Eight, maybe some stories. And then you are a musician. So you and I sing out of the same songbook. I like to talk about the power of music as well.
Yes, absolutely. Do you want to start with the power of music or the power of eight?
We can start with anything you want. I'm pressing the red button and you just go.
Okay. So I look at music as, for me, it's very, very powerful. I started music lessons when I was 8 years old. When I was 13, the studio that I went to had over 200 students, and the gentleman that was who ran the studio, he was the primary musician, composer, arranger. He was magnificent, and he was like a young Zig Ziglar way before his time. And so he was teaching us about music and about life. We didn't know it at the time, but that's what he was doing. And then at the age of 13, he took 6 of us and made us all teachers. And he gave us each 25 students a week. And so from the age of 13 to 21, I taught 25 individual music lessons. I had my own music room that was completely mine, where I would teach all my students. And it was an amazing gift that he gave all of us. And I was involved with him from the age of 8 until 21. And then I graduated from college. I did the corporate thing, and 30 years go by. And I am on a phone call with this music teacher, and he says, Jessica is down in Texas. You guys should get together and play music. And I'm like, well, okay. So I invite her over, and we sit down and play, and we kept playing and kept playing. And we became the #1 classical duet team in the United States and contemporary team in the United States. And so my music has guided me through life. And when I was in my corporate life, I was stressed out. I had forgotten about the important parts of life. Relationships. I had relationships and I had fun, but I was mired in a corporate environment. And so revisiting music after a 30-year hiatus was just incredible. I enjoyed it so much more than when I was a kid. And I learned about musical expression, which when you're a kid, you play the notes, and if it says play loud, you play loud, play soft, play soft. But when you're older and a bit more mature, you begin to feel the music. And I know after my mother passed, she came to visit me, and I sat at the piano and played for her. And it was so moving to know that she was there with me. And I was playing her brother's arrangements. And he was a magnificent musician. He was Jane Russell's accompanist for years.
Oh, my goodness.
And he was Barry Manilow's ghostwriter.
Oh,
so,
no kidding.
Music on the Italian side of the family is just big. And 2.5 years ago, when I was very, very ill and I was in the hospital, the only thing I could really do was listen to music. And I use my music and gratitude to heal. And so music will always be a big part of my life. When I have dinner parties, my piano sits in the living room and I sit and play for people. And if someone asks me, this is your last day, what do you want to do? I would want to have a dinner party with family and friends, and then sit at the piano and entertain them for a bit. That would be my ideal way to pass on. So that's a bit of my musical background. It's been huge in my life, continues to be so, and I'm immensely grateful for it.
And you're very good at it. How
Well,
did you
thank
get
you.
involved with the Power of Eight?
So, 2.5 years ago, when I was sick, I know you've heard this story before, but they finally figured out what was wrong, and the doctors were in my room and my family, and they said, we're going to do this massive surgery. And I said, well, I'm not doing it. I've had a life of illness and surgeries, and I'm tired, and I'm okay to go. So they weren't happy with me. I said, why don't you leave and let me sleep on it? I always had this belief that when my time was near, I could look back and go, I'm so grateful. I've had a tremendous ride. I really have. Family, friends, career, music. It's been wonderful. But you know what? I really wasn't quite ready. So the next morning in my hospital room, I heard a voice, thought it was a nurse, but wasn't. And the voice said, well, you've had a life of illness, car accidents, 2 rounds of cancer. When are you going to wake up? And by the way, this is your last shot. Wake up now or don't wake up at all. And I went, you know what? I hear you, and I will commit to tremendous spiritual growth, learning a lot of different things so that I may help others. And over the last 2.5 years, that's what I've done. And so part of it was going to reading Joe Dispenza. I went to the Advanced Mind Institute and got certified with them as a neurolinguistic programming and all of the mind stuff. And Joe Dispenza, I just loved his work. When I read his first book, I thought, why didn't I read this years ago? It was so powerful. And so I started a meditation practice. I started doing all these different things and got very involved in all of it, which was healing. But when I went to the Joe Dispenza retreat, we learned about meditative healing. And it was the most powerful thing we did the entire week I was there. And when I got back, I met Suzanne Engelbert, who you just interviewed. And she also is a Joe Dispenza graduate. And she says, I really want to start a healing meditation team. I just haven't had the time. And I said, well, I'll take it on. Let's do it. And so organically, 8 people appeared. And we've been doing it now for, let's see, in September, it will be 2 years. And to date, we've helped 150 people. But
including my dad.
Including your dad. The interesting thing that we discovered, and this was when we went to the first retreat last September that you and Jeannie put on, was that when the 4 of us worked on, was it Marabella?
Miss Anna.
Miss Anna. When we worked on her, it was the first time the 4 of us had worked on the same person at the same time. And we discovered the blend of our energies was something very special. We finished and we looked at each other and we were like, oh my. And then to watch the results of what happened, we realized we were onto something.
She couldn't get out of bed.
Right.
She couldn't get out of bed. And then she was all over the place at the retreat. She was in so much pain.
Yep. And so when we drove home from the retreat, we talked about something special happening at the retreat. And we went to another retreat. And of course, Mary that was there invited us to her home to do a private retreat for them. And this is it has started to kind of take on a life of its own. And one of my most grateful things today is this group of 8 women and the subset group of these 4 women, because it is really exciting to know that we are able to help others. I've helped my niece with a very serious condition. I started working with her 2 years ago. Our first phone call, she only wanted to talk about one thing: suicide.
Oh my God.
And so almost 2 years later, she's vibrant. She's happy. She's not completely healed yet, but her life has taken on such a different course, one in which she smiles and she's starting to do the things that she loves to do. And I really firmly believe that if the only reason I had cancer was to have an awakening and help her, it would have been enough. But things, when you ask for things, they appear, right? So last week, I was like, I would really like to mentor more young women. Send me somebody. So the next day on the way home, I was doing a project in Dallas. On the way home, I went by a wonderful little neighborhood bar called Poured. And I thought, I'm going to go have a glass of champagne. I sat at the bar and there was a lovely woman to the right of me. And towards the end, I said, how are you today? And she just kind of, she goes, it's just not good. We started to talk and one thing led to another. And she started to cry. And she said, will you help me? Here she is. She's probably my niece's age. She's in her late 20s, maybe early 30s. And I just love it when you ask spirit something and they show up so quickly and provide answers. When we were getting ready to do the retreat in this last retreat a few weeks ago, I was the one in contact with Mary. And I asked her if she would be willing to compensate us for our time. She said yes. And then I talked to the girls and we figured out this is what we kind of like per person. And I just did the math and gave Mary one number. I didn't tell her this is a per person thing. Well, about a week before the retreat, she says, 2 more people are going to join. And Suzanne's like, oh, that's great. We'll make more money. And I'm like, I didn't set it up that way. I don't feel comfortable to go back and ask her for money. I said, don't worry, though. Here's what I see. They're going to love us so much. They're going to be throwing $100 bills in an envelope. And at the end of the retreat, Mary handed us an envelope and it had the amount that she was going to pay us and $100 bill from every participant.
I'll be darned.
So
it's interesting about money and people saying, oh, I can't take money for this gift. But it's important that people understand that money is energy. Mm-hmm. It's in itself. So if you are giving, it's out of balance if you're not receiving. Mm-hmm. And so in this case, it was voluntary, which is even more beautiful from mm-hmm. the heart and the soul.
Right.
But people need to understand, you and I as musicians have probably, I don't know about you, but I've played a lot of free gigs.
Me too.
Yeah. From the kindness, for the kindness of my heart type thing.
Yeah.
One thing that happens with that is if somebody ever finds out that you did a free gig.
I know how that goes too.
We do one for me. We do one for me. I was like, okay, can't do that anymore. But when I understood, I don't know where I heard it, that money is energy. Mm-hmm. To complete the cycle of receiving, giving, receiving, giving, receiving, it's out of balance if you don't receive something. There's also a thing called bartering.
Yeah.
If
I love bartering.
Yes, I love bartering as well. So if I do this for you, I'm a masseuse. I'll give you a free massage, something like that. Mm-hmm. That's okay as well.
Well, I figured out years ago how to answer the response, well, you're only going to be playing for 2 hours. And I'm like, that's not what you're paying for. You're paying for all of my expertise, my years of practice, the music that I have to pay to acquire. So that's what you're paying for. And so it is easier. We don't play gigs anymore. Every once in a while, I'll get a piano gig, but my piano now is for myself and my friends, and it's for my soul.
Yes. Yes. Sitting at the piano and playing the piano is good for the soul. Exactly. There. And sometimes what I do, Rebecca, is I like to believe that my grandmother, who bought me my very first piano when I was 10 years old, is here and I'm playing for her, or bring in. Then I remember when I was recording all my music, I thought, I'll bring in her and I'll bring in my grandfather and I'll bring in my other grandmother and I'll bring in. So I started naming all of these people that have passed and invited them to come. And then I play for them. And and so what happens with that is it my imagination? Some people would say, yes. It's not. Some of us know it's not, because it's in that love that we had for that person who passed that connects us still with their soul. And
Right.
that's what shows up. Their body doesn't.
Exactly.
But they do. Their essence does.
Yeah, my mother shows up more easily than my father. And interestingly enough, when my mother was in her later years, she had a hysterectomy as a young woman and was never managed properly from a hormone standpoint, which will make you, over time, it changes things for you, and it's very difficult to cope. And so anyway, when she was dying, her eyes were fixed, and so it was families around the bed. Well, I brought in one of my accordions and very quietly played a soft, slow Italian piece. And she just started reacting, and she was crying, and she heard it. And I love that. And then after she passed, I was a bit at odds with my mother when she died. And for reasons that don't need to be discussed, but after she died, I went to see my favorite psychic. And Mom shows up. And she goes, "Oh my," she said, "your mom's here. We knew your mom would come." She said, "She's placing one yellow rose at a time on your chest, and it symbolizes the spiritual journey you're about to go on." And boy, what a journey I have been on. And so my mother and I today have such a wonderful relationship, and it's all come about since she transitioned. And, I just love that. And the day after I saw the psychic, I had grabbed my iPad in the morning, and sometimes they have ads at the bottom. I never clicked those. That morning I clicked it, and there was a song I had never heard before. There were only 3 words in the song, and the 3 words were, "I'm so sorry." So she was apologizing. So music for me is just such a wonderful connector and such a wonderful guide.
Wonderful way to communicate.
Right. And it's one of the tools I use to reset. Something happens, I'm not happy, and I can sit at the piano and do a reset. I can go to the park and do a reset. But the music has been an amazing tool spiritually. And so I will continue to use it. As long as I can sit at the piano, I will be there.
Absolutely. Oh, I love talking to a fellow musician, especially somebody like yourself. I think that all of us have spiritual moments. All of us do. Of course we do, because we are mind, body, spirit. When we are the most blessed is when we are aware of those spiritual moments. And when you go into understanding that we are a spiritual being having the human experience, it's very difficult then to go into our human experience, or to let ego or things in life hurt us or stress us out, because we learn how to go into the spiritual realm.
Yes.
I was just talking before this interview with Suzanne, who's one of your best friends and part of the family. And we were talking about Abraham Hicks.
Oh, yeah.
And my son just went on an Abraham Hicks cruise.
Wow.
One thing that they talk about is when you are in a stressful situation, say, everything is always working out for me. Everything is always working out for me. And so what I've learned how to do personally is, if you can imagine God and I, God's got God's arm around me, right? Saying, so what do you think about this situation, that Cindy's going through? Because my higher self I call Cynthia, right?
Oh, okay.
So what do you think about this stuff Cindy's going through? And then Cynthia will respond with, she's been through this again. When will she ever learn? Kind of thing. But having conversations with God as you are going through your experience that's a human experience. All human experiences that are negative are just lessons. They're just lessons.
They're just lessons.
They're just lessons on how to get through them.
And the madder you are, the bigger the benefit.
Yes, ma'am. And so I've learned how to do that. Some people could say it's my imagination. Sometimes I think it's my my ego wants to think it's my imagination every time, saying, what are you doing? I am speaking from that place where God and I are one.
Right.
Watching Cindy having her human experience.
Exactly.
But always here. Always here. So when I go, wait a minute, I want to go there. I want to be Cynthia right now. I don't want to be Cindy. Cindy's in pain. Cindy's angry. Right. Cindy's whatever. I want to go to be Cynthia. So for me, that works. So I call it my natural schizophrenia, but that's okay. Cynthia is my higher self. Cindy is that's having the human experience. And CJ is my ego.
Oh, wow.
Your princess.
So, it's interesting that you bring that up, because my presentation at this last retreat was using your emotions as a guide to sit down and talk to your higher self, listen, be mindful, and then take action. And what's kind of interesting about that, not too long ago, I had 3 business groups that I was doing consulting with in Dallas. And 2 of them, I was bitching about it all the time. I don't want to work with these people. And, why am I? And I even was talking to Suzanne and Marty about it. They heard me with this, and I just kept doing it, right? Knowing that I should be stopping, but I just kept doing it. Well, then one of the business groups, 4 people in the group, kind of ganged up, and they did something inappropriate to me. And it made me really angry. So my hot button just got pushed. So I sat down on the couch and I said, it's time to talk to your higher self. And what I imagine is my higher self sitting across from me.
Oh, that's
and, the higher self asked, why are you so angry? And my response was, well, they treated me horrible. I should feel angry, blah, 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 blah. No. Why are you really angry? And it's like, so I sat for a minute and I said, well, kind of concerned I wasn't going to be able to replace the income. Oh, would we call that fear? And then I started to laugh because, spirit, when I don't listen, spirit just keeps getting louder. So I said, you sent those 4 guys, didn't you? And there's this laughing. And then, I kind of believe that, Anita Moorjani, in her book, Dying to Be Me, she talks about when she crossed over, there's this beautiful tapestry, and we're all these magnificent different colors and types of threads weaving through this tapestry. And she said, as we touch other people, these are all the experiences that we have with one another. And so she said, if you think that, who am I really talking to? We're all connected. So it really doesn't matter whether you call it your higher self, whether you call it God, whether you call it the connectedness of all of us. We're able to tap into this universal knowledge because we are connected. But the key is you have to tap in, which means for me, I have to sit down someplace quiet and ask for help. And when I ask for help, sometimes they ask me painful questions, but those painful questions lead me to going, okay, I get it now, and we're done with that. Right. So anyway, I feel like our emotions can be amazing guideposts as long as we don't use them as hitching posts.
Exactly. Emotions are what controls our heart.
Exactly.
One way or the other. We either have a pain or we have a joy or whatever, but it always affects the heart and in our solar plexus. If it is pain, it goes down into our gut.
Yep.
Suzanne did a beautiful job of explaining chakras. How the heart connects all the chakras, and anything below the heart, those chakras are our flight, fight.
Right. And all our physical.
Right. And then everything above is our spiritual self.
Yeah.
And I believe, Rebecca, that life is about discovering that we are divine beings having the human experience.
Absolutely.
And when you have learned how to get in touch more with your divine self and understanding that the creator is having your experience with you.
Right.
Because otherwise the creator is just bliss, happiness, wonderful.
Right.
So it's in the contrast, as we've all learned, where we learn the most valuable lessons.
Yep.
I remember one time doing a speech for a group of women in Nashville, and it was a luncheon, and there's these big, beautiful windows. And I said, how many stars are out there right now? And everybody said, none.
You baited them.
I said, there's as many stars out there right now as are at night.
Right.
We just can't see them because of the sun shining so bright.
Yep.
So it's in that contrast. It's in the darkness that we find the light. And I love that idea of light, light, light.
Yep.
Jesus said, I am the light.
Yep.
And Jesus, no matter how you understand Jesus, I don't care what religion you're in, whatever, you cannot mistake the fact that the man was an amazing teacher. Mm-hmm. He had these great one-liners, these great parables, these great stories. Yep. So get out of the, my religion's better than yours, or my church is better than yours. I mean, that's just a bunch of
it's such a waste of time.
It's a waste of time. Go into the teachings, the understanding of what he was trying to teach. And now we're learning that a lot of his teachings are buried in tunnels and under the Vatican. They don't want you to know how powerful you are.
They don't.
We are such powerful beings, and they know that. Those that want to control, they know how powerful they are, but they control the human psyche with fear. And fear in itself is very, very powerful. Yep. So powerful. But love is even more powerful.
Yep.
And I agree. And that's where we need to go.
Yep.
To the love energy every time. Because when you're in fear energy, you can find the love in there somewhere.
Yep. You know, I came up with a term. I didn't come up with it. I asked something in a meditation, and the answer that came
love
back,
that you channeled the term. You opened up the portal, and here it came.
Right. So, but anyway, the term that came up was spiritual sound bites. And I thought, that would be a great short book to write. And it's about the interactions you have with total strangers where you make their day. And imagine if everybody did spiritual sound bites with one another. I talk to strangers all the time. I find it to be so rewarding. Sometimes it even end.
Yes.
Oh, and I get hugs, and people have cried, and, they'll say, how did you know I needed to hear these things? And, well, I just love doing this.
Yes.
And I find that when we open up and ask and we listen and we're receptive to it, we get answers faster and faster and faster. So 2.5 years ago, I thought I was going to write a book, and it was going to be on natural cancer healing. So I'd start it and I'd stop it. I'd start and stop it. And then one day it dawned on me, I was writing the wrong book. Because after 2.5 years, what I've really discovered about body, mind, and spirit is that one thing that you really have to get a handle on is the whole mind piece. And so the book that I think I should be writing is about not cancer, but what's your wake-up call? So anyway, in meditation, I said, should I write this book? Show me a sign. So I'm in East Texas. My sister and I go into a coffee shop. A friend of hers sits down. First thing out of her mouth, I just finished my 23rd ebook, and I sell 10,000 ebooks to one hardcover. I'm like, well, that could be a sign. We walk across the street to an art gallery, and we lost a friend of ours last November, and he had authored a book. And in the art gallery, there was a counter off in the back, and I saw 3 books on it. And one of them, I picked it up, and it goes, oh my God, this is John's book. I don't have a copy. So I walked over to the guy who ran the art gallery, and I said, would you sell this to me? he said, you were a good friend of John's, weren't you? And I said, yeah, I was. He said, I think John would want you to have it.
Oh, wow.
So I know. Then we go across to the art center, and I go into the gift shop, and here's this entire shelf of books written by a dear friend of mine. Okay, as if that's not enough, right? This is all happens within an hour. Then we go into my sister's house. She goes over to her bookcase, pulls out a book, and she said, our dear friend Graham wrote this. I've got 2 signed copies. I think he would want you to have one. She hands me a book, right? And so then a few days later, I'm in Starbucks, and I'm waiting for a friend, and this guy is sitting in this nice cushy chair across from me. And finally, I strike up a conversation with him, and I said, what are you up to today? He said, I'm finishing my book. And I said, really? We'd start talking about our books.
Boom, 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 boom.
Right. And he said, may I design the cover of your book for you? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So the title that he came up with is What's Your Cancer? Underneath it, the cancer sign, the crab. And at the very bottom, from cancer to fear to hope to joy. So maybe I'm supposed to write a book. But I love it. Now, and what I would love to tell people who don't ask is that when you do start asking, things happen very quickly.
And absolutely. Say that again. Say that again.
And I said, when you ask and you ask more frequently, the answers come quicker and quicker.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Yes. I was driving out of the parking lot at the grocery store a few weeks back, and I saw 2 cars coming, and I thought to myself, I can squeeze in before they get here. But I heard this voice say, be patient. So I waited. Those 2 cars roll up to the stoplight, and a car came screaming through. All those cars were in a car accident. I'm like, thank you. That's how
the voice. The voice. I wrote a song about the voice.
Did you?
I sure did. It's about meditation, and it's in my ballet of The Miracle of the Lady in Blue. And it's love is here, nothing else exists, only silence singing in my heart. I feel the love lighting up my soul when I hear the voice.
That's beautiful.
Not too long ago, I really got into Neil Donald Walsh's Conversations with God.
Right.
And I realized something, and you just nailed it again. Kind of like your book thing. You just nailed it again. That's why I said, say that again, say that again. The way he wrote that book was he kept asking questions. And when you understand that God will answer that question, your challenge or your whatever is to know that that is the voice of God coming through. Mm-hmm. So you start understanding, this is my thought. That wasn't my thought. That was a divine thought.
Right.
I didn't
know how you can go ahead. I'm sorry.
And well, that's what I was going to say is, and then you find yourself, like what you said, the divine thoughts turn into words when you're talking to someone, like when you go in these strangers, you realize after the experience, that it wasn't you.
Exactly.
It was your divine self.
Right.
In union with God, love energy coming through you. And when the more and more you practice that, it's more and more exciting.
Right. Do you know how you can tell the difference between whether it's your monkey mind or whether it's spirit?
Tell us.
Okay. I heard this, and this is from Anita Marjani. This is not my creative thinking, but she said, when you think about something and you start going down the what if path, what if this, well, if I did that, blah, 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 blah. If you get a thought and it excites you and feels good, that's spirit. And you don't question it.
And I've been doing that with my musical because, it's going to premiere summer. And for those who are new, in 2023, then I say, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? And I keep hearing, you've already done it. You wrote it. We're in charge now. I just keep hearing.
Isn't that nice?
So
Yeah.
in conclusion, Rebecca, what do you want our audience to know? If you have one passionate thing, one.
I really believe that the way to heal, and because I'm totally into healing because of my experiences, but the best way to heal is to have a joyful life. The best way to have a joyful life is to do what you love. And to discover what it is that you truly love, you must ask, listen, and take action.
Thank you so much for being with us. I love you big. I love you big.
I love you big too.
We'll do this again.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a lovely day, Cindy.